So, if you've watched Kamen Rider as long as I have, you pretty quickly recognize that there are a lot of swords in Kamen Rider. And I mean a lot. I mean, it's so plentiful and expected at this point that current main riders like 01, they get multiple swords to use in the same season. But you know what? Nobody's really created a definitive ranking list for any of these. Yep, this is a tier list video. I know you guys love those. So we're going to be ranking them from S tier, which is the best of the best, all the way down to F tier, which is the worst of the worst. So this tier list ranks all these weapons based on how aesthetically pleasing that they are to me personally. So obviously this is not going to be a definitive list for everybody out there. And we're gonna be ranking these based on the in-show props, not the toys, okay? The toys, they would all be in D and F tier. Also, if there's any weapons that transform between like a gun mode and a sword mode, we're just gonna be only evaluating the sword mode. So let's lay some groundwork for this video and limit the scope a bit, because I would hate myself to try to rank every sword in one singular video, but we're specifically going to do Heisei main rider swords that can be used in the rider's base form. So what I mean by that is that whatever base form that the rider's kind of seen with, or is kind of shown as their base, that if they can use a sword in that form without having to acquire a different form to obtain the sword to use, then it's eligible for this list. So when I say base form, you might be like, well, what about, dunno platform? Guys, whatever the one that's shown off the most as their base form is the base form. So unfortunately for all two of you Ryuki blank form fans out there, the Ride Saber, the little crappy sword he starts with in the first episode or two, would not be qualified for this list. Although I put it in F tier anyways, that thing sucks. Why Heisei Rider specifically? This is just my list. Alright then, with that out of the way, let's get started. First up, since we're skipping alternate forms, we're gonna have to go straight to Ryuki for the first sword that a rider uses in his base form. So first one up is Ryuki's Drag Saber. I actually kind of like the idea behind it because the whole premise of Ryuki is built on these contracts with the Advent monsters, so seeing parts from the monsters actually become the weapons, I think is pretty cool. I mean, it is a pretty simple design, but it is a pretty simple sword. So I'll have to put it in B tier. Oh, the Phi's Edge. Oh, this weapon is so cool. I mean, a sword that comes from the handlebar of a motorcycle and glows in the dark. Like, how is that not cool? My only real complaint with the sword that's keeping it from being S tier is like this weird, like silver backing on it that just looks kind of awkward. But other than that, the thing's like near perfect. So I'll have to put it in A tier. Oh, this next one kind of tears me apart because even though Blade is my favorite Kamen Rider show, the Blade Rouser, it has either really, really good aesthetic in some parts, but then also kind of has really doping looking stuff in others. What's weird about it is that if you look at the sword from head on, like, it looks really badass, but like you turn it to its side and then like it just looks really dopey. I don't know, when the card holder's like folded up, like not splayed out, I don't know, there's just something like, it just looks wrong. I can't explain why. But you know what, aside from that, like the sword looks fine. I like the color scheme of it. The way the blade tapers off looks fine. The handle, it's okay, I guess. So I'm just gonna have to put it in B tier, so a little bit better than average. Can we really classify the Ongeki Bow as swords? Well, I'm doing so anyways, and these swords are pretty much perfect designs. I mean, those kind of like glass-looking flame orbs on the top pretty much sell the entire thing for me. And like the handles themselves are pretty simple, and little devil horns on top are pretty nice and accent everything pretty well. So this is an instant S tier. Dengasher Sword Mode. Is this really the weapon worthy of Momotaros? It's kind of pathetic how little of the actual blade is the sword of the sword mode, and the rest of it just kind of is this unappealing like black and blue thing going on, and it looks all stuck together. I get that's part of the whole point of the weapon, it's modular, but D tier. Man, Decade got the short end of the stick a lot of the time, and Ride Booker Sword Mode is no exception. It's just so funny. It's like, it's not even just that it's like a card holder in the middle of a sword. It's just, even if you took the card holder out, it's an awful looking sword. Like, most of it is not even a blade. I mean, the thing's funny to look at, but with regards to actually appealing design, I gotta put it in F tier. Now this is the point where we start getting to where the weapons are interacting with the actual collectible transformation gimmick at this point. And a lot of weapons really kind of suffer for trying to integrate something like that, but the Meta Jalloper surprisingly handles it pretty well. I mean, not only does it look cool in the fact that it resembles the O's driver aesthetically, it also makes the gimmick work with the cell metals, and it makes the whole scanning thing work too without really compromising too much on the aesthetic. I mean, given kind of all the functionality that the Meta Jalloper has, the fact that it is able to stay such aesthetically amazing is honestly incredible. So I'm gonna have to give it like an A tier rating. And then we kind of have an example of sort of gimmick interactability really dragging down the aesthetics of the weapon, which is the Wizard's Sword Gun. I feel like I'm experiencing the Mandela effect or something. Like, I remember watching Wizard as it was airing, and I swear to God that weapon was way thicker than any of the actual images of the weapon that I'm finding now. I'm personally not a fan of having the design of a big black hand you shake hands with in order to get the ring scanned. Even if you take out the hand, like, the weapon just feels kind of unremarkable. Like, there's nothing really notable about it, I think. Like, the silver normally on weapons pops, but for the sword gun, I don't know. Maybe it's just because it's all silver, and that's why it just seems so lackluster. So much like Kamen Rider Wizard, the show itself, I'm gonna have to put the Wizard's Sword Gun at C tier for being the most average, bland, and uninteresting thing. So if you forgot, Gaim actually has two swords that he can use in his base form. So let's go over both. The Dynamaru, I think, actually is like a low-key perfect design. I mean, the orange aesthetic just looks really, really good, and they really sort of make everything work really cohesively together, including the handle, which really matches Gaim's base suit very well. It's honestly impressive that the design is as perfect as it is, considering that the weapon doesn't interact with any of the lock seeds in any way. And usually you would expect that the weapon that is going to interact with the gimmick that you're selling is going to get more people designing it and an overall better design as a result. Dynamaru, welcome to S tier. You know what? The Muso Saber somehow manages to make a gun literally sticking out of a sword handle somehow work. I mean, it also has, I think, the best color scheme of any of the weapons on this list, so that helps as well. My only complaint is that the protrusions, in order to accommodate a lock seed, really stick out a bit too much for my taste. So it can't go into S tier, but it gets pretty close, so I'll put it in A tier. The Handle Ken is the kind of weapon that people live for in tokusatsu. Okay, it's kind of hard to imagine the Handle Ken existing in any other live-action superhero series. I actually really like the blade part a lot, but the steering wheel, I'm just really torn on it, because I think it's making the steering wheel work, but at the same time, though, like, I feel like it's holding it back at the same time. So I'm just gonna have to put it in C tier, just because I'm so torn on it, and it's not the worst design in the world, but I do feel like this could have been better. I mean, the Gan Gun Saber is like the most average-looking rider weapon I think I could ever have conceived. Like, it looks fine, like, it looks pleasing, but I can't really think of like any sort of interesting thing that makes it stand out. Even the bad weapons on this list like have some sort of interesting thing that makes it stand out compared to all other weapons. This just kind of looks like kind of normal, which is like, I mean, it's fine, but for like a tokusatsu weapon, like the color scheme's all right, and like there's a ton of modes to it, but like it just doesn't feel like it stands out compared to everything else. So for that, I'm gonna have to put it in C tier. I know a lot of people like to hate on Ex-Aid's overall design aesthetics. I'm not necessarily one of those people, but seeing the Gashikon Breaker in sword mode makes me totally understand 100% what those people are feeling. So you have this decent looking mallet design, and then you have like the most uninteresting blade attachment possible, and then you have these ugly pink like slash effects going on that, ugh. I'm sorry, F tier. Oh, I'm sorry, Sento, but the Drill Crusher I just don't get as a weapon. It feels simultaneously both super under-designed and super over-designed at the same time. Like the drill part just feels way too simple, and then the base just seems super duper overly complicated for no real reason. So I'm gonna have to put it in D tier. And finally, ZO's. God, I forgot this weapon even existed. Like, you guys know, like, the sword that ZO2 uses? That's two separate swords that combine together. like, and this is one of them. I mean, I kind of like the whole dark green thing that they added to it that's not on ZO, but they still keep consistency with his aesthetic with kind of the whole watch band thing going on throughout the sword. And even they have a little watch band where you would insert a ride watch. But it doesn't really have that much else going for it, and the big ride watch bulge on the side really kind of throws out all sort of the nice sort of design the rest of the weapon has. C tier, I guess. And that's it, finally. Oh, I can't believe there's still more to go. I might do another video on this. I don't know. I'll see how I feel after I edit this one. So anyways, guys, that's it, and have a good day.